Everybody.
Sir.
Dr. Buronkar, sir, you are there online?
Sir, good morning. I am very much there on the line.
Good morning, sir. Welcome to this webinar, sir, as a resource person.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Friends, today is the second day of the national webinar on recent advances in mango production. Today, we will have 4 power-packed lectures. To begin with, one by Dr. M.M. Buronkar. He will be speaking on physiological disorders and their management in mango. The second lecture will be given by Dr. P.V. Reddy, Principal Scientist, IHR Bangalore, on pest management in mango, the emerging problems. Then the third lecture in the afternoon session will be by Dr. Sriram, again Principal Scientist, Department of Plant Pathology, IHR Bangalore. He will be speaking on integrated disease management in mango. And the last speaker will be retail and supply chain management in mango. That will be by Mr. Jagannath, PSK, General Manager Operations, Aditya Birla Group from Bangalore. So these are the 4 more important sessions that today we have planned to put forth before you. To begin with, I once again welcome all the participants to this national webinar. We'll start the session with a very important topic on physiological disorders and their management in mango. We are privileged to have one of the most distinguished speaker, Dr. M.M. Buronkar. Sir, you are most welcome to this webinar as a resource person.
Thank you.
I am very privileged to host you on this webinar. You have a very, very vast experience of more than 30 years working on the physiological disorders of mango. Sir, we were together in Dharwad campus, if I remember. You are alumni of Dharwad campus for your PhD program.
Yes.
Now, as a physiologist under Dr. M.B. Chetty, now I request one more physiologist, our colleague, Dr. Ashok Suryavanshi, to give your brief introduction.
Good morning to all. Respected today's speaker, Dr. M.M. Buronkar, sir. I'm very happy to introduce today's speaker and my teacher and my senior. Is also popularly known as a mango physiologist. So, sir did his MSc from the BSKKVA Dapoli, and he did a PhD from the University of Agricultural Science, Dharwad, with a gold medalist under the guidelines of Dr. M.B. Chetty, Vice Chancellor. And coming to the academic professional experience, sir has having the more than 35 years experience in the teaching, research, and extension. So major experience over this research experience tackling the physiological problems in mango, flowering, and fruiting and post-harvest disorders. Sir is having 22 years experience of teaching also. He also guided 14 MSc students and 2 PhD students. And coming to the extension works, he is having experience over 30 years of experience in the extension, especially in the mango production technology. Then his most significant contribution in the mango research, the first one is the standardize and commercialize first time in the country the use of pactobutrazole, that is Cultar, for overcoming the national problems of alternative bearing habit in Alfonso mango. This technology is very popular all over the world, as in India. This technology proved that the boon of the boosting the mango production in as more than 20,000 liters of pactobutrazole at the rate of 10 crores is being used annually throughout the country. This is one of the most significant work of the Dr. Buronkar, sir. He also involved in the development of 4 mango hybrids, namely seedless Sindhu, Konkan Samrat, Suvarna, and Konkan Ruchi. Then he also developed the X-ray based machine for online auto detection and auto sorting of spongy tissue affected fruits. We all know that this is one of the major physiological disorders in the mango. Then standardized the first time in India use of 1 MCPA, that is anti-ethylene, to delay the fruit ripening required in a sea export for Alfonso mango to the Europe. This is also one of the major contribution to the horticulture crops. Then based on this, the significance of this work, sir has awarded many Then one is FIE Foundation National Award during 1993. Then RSE Acclimatization State Level Award in 1996. Then Abba Saheb Kubul State Level Award in 1997 and State Level Krishi Sanmana Puraskar during 2015. And also ICAR recognized the New Delhi sponsored University Level Best Teacher Award during the 2015. Sir, apart from this, sir also visited abroad and presented the national and international level seminars, and they have bagged the best paper awards and best presentations. And he also visited many countries and research explained the use of the pactobutrazol in the different countries like Australia, Switzerland, then Germany, Netherlands, and Europe. Like this, he has visited many these countries and presented his paper. And coming to the publications, he is having the more than 200 publications nationally, internationally with a reputed national level. And he also delivered the talk on radio and TV with which will help to the farming community regarding the mango cultivation expert. With this, his brief biodata, now I request to Dr. Boronkar sir to deliver his lecture on physiological disorders, especially in the Alfonso mango, sir. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Suryavanshi, for sharing some good words about me.
Thank you, sir.
So, good morning to all. First of all, I would like to profusely thank organizers for giving me this opportunity to be here as a part of this webinar and to share some research experience. First of all, I thank organizing chairman, Dr. Ravindra Mulge, who is also the Honorable Dean, College of Horticulture, Bidar. I also thank organizing secretary, Dr. Praveen Joglikar, then Dr. Srinivas, and of course, my friend, Dr. Suryavanshi, for giving this opportunity. So now it is at 10:45. So I welcome all the participants and I say the very good morning and happy new year to one and all. So friends, I have been given a topic, physiological disorders and their management in mango. So as we are all aware that the mango needs hardly any introduction. You know, it is such a wonderful and unarguably one of the best tropical fruit crops in the world, and which is grown almost in 5 continents. Then more than 111 countries it is being cultivated worldwide. But as far as the area world mango production present total world scenario is there, of course we are leading the world with the 44% contribution in the world mango production. Of course, our share about 20 years back was more than 65%, but now it has come down as to the 44%, but still we are maintaining the first position. Then other countries are, of course, China is closely following us, then Mexico, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia. These are some of the countries which are following closely. Next, please. Then in India, the crop, except the temperate zone, this crop is grown throughout the length and breadth of our country. And of course, although we have got the more than 1,000 varieties, named varieties as per the nomenclature completed by the SINA answer, but still the commercially important varieties are 22 varieties are grown. Of these, many varieties they have got the regional preference. So region wise, we have got the different varieties, but altogether there are more than 22 varieties which are commercially grown or seen in the commercial orchards. As far as as you know that the area and world mango area production productivity is there. So as far as India is concerned, our productivity is 8.7 metric ton per hectare, which is far below the some of the countries, mango growing countries in the world. And and when we come to the that is a Konkan region, which is one of the biggest mango growing belt in the country on the west coast, the productivity where this Alfonso is grown on the commercial scale, the productivity is stagnated around 2.5 to 3 tons per hectare. So the yields are, as compared to the other fruit crops in last 40 years, we have made the quantum jump in the achieving the yields in many other fruit crops. But as far as mango is concerned, we are still around 7 to 8 tons per hectare. So these yields are very low comparatively. Then there are for this low yield or productivity, there are a number of biotic and abiotic factors are responsible, as we know all, because like the pests, many pests and diseases are there, some environmental challenges are there. But then again, the physiological disorders play a very crucial and significant role or pivotal role in deciding the yield and both yield and quality of the mango. So as you know that the physiological disorders, when you say that any deformity occurs in the growth and development of the plant or plant part due to the abnormal plant metabolism, and which leads to the economical losses. So most of the physiological disorders, they are very complex phenomena and governed by the genetical, nutritional factor, hormonal factor, environmental factor. They are widely occurred in the fruit crop. But as far as the mango is concerned, perhaps mango has the highest number of physiological disorders to the record. What I have seen that more than 8 physiological disorders are observed in the mango. And if you see that through all the phenophases of the mango, right from the vegetative growth, flowering, fruiting, then during the maturity, post-harvest, all the stages, we have got the different physiological disorders. To name is alternate bearing. Well, everybody knows what is alternate bearing and or the biennial bearing. Then we have got the malformation, recurrent flowering, fruit drop, junca or the clustering of the fruit, black tips, soft nose, and spongy tissue. So these are the all physiological disorders. It has this have been in literature. You'll find that many mango literature, these have been reported. These physiological disorders are there. But if you see this pictorial form, so you can see that this alternate bearing habit, same thing, malformation, recurrent flowering, junca is there. So all these physiological disorders, they vary from location to location. Means they are not in the same severity. Their severity vary from the location to location. Then from variety to variety, all the physiological disorders, they don't found in all the varieties. So these are location specific, variety specific, and again the season specific. Same severity, the severity will change from the season to season. Not so these are the, for example, this alternate bearing is, you know, that among this all the physiological disorders, I will try to touch upon this if time permit. But as you know that among all these physiological disorder, this alternate bearing, then spongy tissue, and recurrent flowering, these are very much observed in Alfonso, which is a leading mango variety of our country. As you know that this is one of the best variety for both for the table purpose, pickle purpose, pulp, as well as for export. That's why it is a prime export variety with the share of more than 30%. But the physiological disorders associated with this prime variety has huge contributed. It has limited the yield to the 2.5 to 3 tons per hectare as far as Konkan area, that we call as a coastal ecosystem, which runs about 750 kilometers long strip is there, and then quality losses to the tune of more than 30% are there. So these are the 3 major disorders are found in the leading variety that we call the Alfonso: alternate bearing, spongy tissue, and the recurrent flowering. So we'll try to address some of the these physiological disorder and how we can manage them. So as we know that among those most of the varieties, except for example the Neelam, which is reported and also exhibits throughout the country, it is a highest degree of regularity is found in the Neelam. But rest of the variety, they have got the more or less, they are all regarded as a having this problem of the alternate bearing of a different severity. So exactly why we have to understand what is exactly the alternate bearing. So it denotes the yield variation in alternate years. That is a year of optimum or heavy fruiting, and that is followed by the year of little or no fruiting. So this behavior is observed. And so if we say we have got the 100 plants, so almost 40 to 60% plant will be having the on and the off cycle. So again, we can see that branch to branch variation is also observed. And then this is the same phenomena is synonymous with the biennial bearing or the irregular bearing. And generally, this phenomena becomes prominent only after the age of 10 years. So after the 10 years, initial years in the orchard, we may not see this, but prominently it is observed after the 10 years of the orchard age. And then if you have to call any variety is having as a regular bearing variety, then that variety should have the characteristics of, say, you can see here in the picture one slide that this is a dried panicle or rachis of the past season, and from the same shoot, if you are getting the new flowering in the subsequent year, then only we can say that this is a sorry. So this phenomena, if this phenomena is seen in any variety, then only we can say that yes, this variety has got some potential. It is a tendency to bear the regularly. But one branch-wise variation is also the part of the alternate bearing or the biennial bearing. Next. Now, if you see the why alternate bearing is observed. If you see the annual growth cycle of the mango, we can have the more than 36 different phenophases are there, but all there can be categorized into the 5 phenophases. This phase is called as a vegetative stage phase. Second phase is called as a dormant stage, and third is a reproductive stage. So if you see that vegetative stage is there, so if you see the calendar of the one year calendar, so vegetative flush generally should start from the post harvest, once the fruits are harvested. So this is a vegetative flush should be there, and that gets mature within 3.5 to 4 months. So then after maturity, this mature shoots, they should pass through the dormancy stage. And during because this period they will be photosynthesizing, with the process, in the process of the photosynthesis they will be accumulating more carbohydrate, or that is called the structural and non-structural carbohydrate, which play the very significant role in the overall plant growth and development. So this phase should be devoted to the dormant space should be there from September to November, and then November onward, from December to April, we have got this reproductive phase, that is called the flowering, then fruit setting and harvesting. So to call this a regular bearing phenomena, all these 3 phases or this life cycle, annual growth cycle, should be completed within a 1 calendar year. So if that takes place, then we can say that our management is supportive for having the regular bearing. But for one or other reasons, maybe the genetical factor, climatic factor, hormonal factor, this cycle doesn't complete within a 1 year, and it so it surpasses. So that's why this leads to the biennial bearing tendency in the most of the varieties. Now, as far as this biennial bearing disorder is concerned, it has been reviewed very intensely by the number of workers from maybe Dr. Chadha and Paul 1980, then Pandey RM 1986, Chadha and Parikh in 1993, Kulkarni Vijay 1996. We, myself and my associate director of then, Dr. Gunzate, one of the renowned horticulturists in the country. So we also reviewed in 1987 and 96. And then Devonport and many other, they have reviewed this biennial bearing and what is the physiology behind this biennial bearing habit. And number of mango flowering models have been put forth by the different workers. So if you see that, all these models, these are we can say that this biennial bearing or the flowering physiology is a complex phenomena in mango. So physiology of, if you see one of the model which is successful, so that is which are the factors. Those are the what you call as the heredity factors, and which are the genetical factors, and which are the climatic factors, which are helpful in floral induction and floral inhibition. So when we take if we summarize all these events which takes place in the physiology of the flowering, so we have summarized all this effect like that. We can say that this physiology or the flowering physiology is a very complex phenomena, and it is not governed by the single factor. So we can say that more than 11 factors are responsible. What are all the models they have been described by the Davenport or some Sach and et al. They have, from this what we can guess that this physiology is a physiology of flowering. It is a control by the majority is a soil factor, plant factors, and environmental factor. Among the soil factor, the water stress before flowering, so that is very important. So then nitrogen trace, role of the rootstock and soil and their interaction, and soil type and elevation, they play the significant role. They contribute in the deciding the governing the flowering physiology. Then as far as plant factors is concerned, again the genetical makeup of the plant, because you know that all the varieties don't show the same severity or towards this disorder. So genetical makeup of the plant, then it is a efficiency of the plant to accumulate and budgeting of the carbohydrate or the CHO budgeting, how the variety is efficient in synthesizing the carbohydrates or the required structural and non-structural carbohydrate and their budgeting and utilization. Then shoot maturity, then hormonal balance. Low GA is necessary for GA is concerned. It is a or it is a flowering inhibitor. It has been proven beyond the doubt that gibberellin synthesis in the plant is a flowering inhibitor. And then xylem to phloem ratio. So these are some of the plant factors which decide or govern the process of flowering. Then among the environmental factors, this low night temperature, high vapor pressure deficit, proximity to the sea, and salty breeze. So these are the three categories. So these are all factors that they govern the flowering. So many times we discuss the flowering or on the single factor. So that is not a correct on the basis of only the temperature or only the PBZ or only the soil moisture trace. So it is a very, when all these factors, when there is a what you call as a coordination takes place among all the factors, that situation leads to the flowering. And one thing that one have to remember, that the factors which favors the flowering, their other end or that other end helps in the vegetative flush. So the factor which if here the one end is favoring the flowering, their other end favors the vegetative flush. So that is very much clear in this mango. So now we'll discuss the one by one in short. What is the role of the soil factor? So soil factor is very, very important, as it has been reviewed by the many workers. They have discussed this. So generally it has been observed that just 1.5 months before the expected flowering time, the plant should expose to, or the root should expose to the mild water trace, maybe minus 1.5 megapascal. That should be the limit. So that much mild trace is required for induction, or just to check the what you call as the vegetative growth and to shift the balance toward the production. So that is a soil factor is there. Then also mild nitrogen trace before the flowering is also reported, that plays a very significant role in the induction of the flowering. So this is then for that purpose we should have the optimum leaf in content. We should monitor that leaf content in the plant. So then we'll come to the genetical makeup of the plant. As I said that though we have got the more than 22 commercial varieties, but most of the varieties, they exhibit this alternate bearing habit, except a few, or to name the first and foremost will be the Neelam. That's the reason that Neelam is having the very good high degree of regularity in the bearing. That's the reason that whatever we have released the different mango hybrids at a national level, more than 50% mango hybrids, they have got Neelam as one of the parents. So this is the reason that Neelam, maybe it is a Amrapali or the or Mallika, or maybe it's a Ratna, or whatever this. So they have got this Neelam is one of the parent, because it can inherit the characteristics of the regular bearing, and that has been proved. That's why this all the varieties, they have got this Neelam. So Neelam genetically, if you say discuss the genetical makeup, then Neelam is one of the best variety which bears regularly, followed by the Totapuri and all other varieties. Then when we'll come to the plant factors. So among the 5 to 6 plant factor, we have seen that one of the most and foremost plant factor, that is a reserve, carbohydrate resource in the plant. How plant efficiently and quickly get recouped after the harvesting of the previous season. After the harvesting of the previous season, the plant should able to synthesize more and more carbohydrate or the starch in the process of photosynthesis as early as possible, so that it will have the sufficient budget for the structural and non-structural activity to form. So if you see that, if you see the major framework element of the plant, as we know that so if you see that here we can see that if you, whether it is a entire, you could take the entire plant body or any plant part, maybe the leaf or the flower or the fruits, all if you go for the analyze, you will find that there the three major constituents will be there, that is organic, inorganic material and the moisture. So generally, if we, when we harvest the fruits or the fruits part, you'll find that 80 to 85% is water. Then almost 3 to 4% will be the different elemental composition or the nutritional composition will be there, which we manage through the fertilizer application. But one of the major constituents, almost 13 to 50% depend on the tissue type, is a carbohydrate. And we can, for this carbohydrate, only the source of this is only the, as we know that it is a process of photosynthesis. So that's why if we have got this good management or the good our strategy for the photosynthesis, then only that plant we can have that this carbohydrate budget will immediately or it quickly plant will synthesize and will get ready for the further growth. Maybe it is a vegetative growth or the flowering. So, but this has got some limits. So when this carbohydrate synthesis, or when we compare, so we conducted one study at our institute level under the one project, funded project, and we observed that where we recorded the rate of photosynthesis in the plant or carbohydrate accumulation in the plant twice in a month we recorded. So we have got the 24 readings. We started from the June first fortnight, June to May. So this for 12 months round the year, twice in a month we recorded the carbon assimilation or the rate of photosynthesis. And we observed that during June to September 8, that is generally on the coastal ecosystem, we have got the monsoon season. So during this monsoon season, we observed that this we have got this rate of carbon assimilation of the photosynthesis was very, very poor. That was almost, we observed that it is only so June to September, the rate is 2.2 to 2.5 micromole per CO2 per meter per second. Then we found the highest in October, November, after rainy season, when the sunlight is also abundant and moisture is also abundant. And then in December, we had that 6.5, and then April, May, because of the low low soil moisture supply, we observed that this was very poor rate of photosynthesis. So throughout the year, if you observe that in the entire year, only October, November or post monsoon time, that is we have got the highest carbon assimilation rate, and it was a poor during because of the low light intensity, which is almost, that is as we know that the light saturation point in mango is about 700 lux. So we observed that it is hardly 100 to 150 lux, almost 5 times less than what is minimum required for the photosynthesis, being the mango being the C3 crop. And then so this is one of the observed reason we observed for this low photosynthesis. So that is one of the reason. Then if you see that the carbohydrate distribution, starch distribution pattern is there, so it is we only know that the root plays the significant role in the mechanical support, then absorption of the moisture and nutrient, all this. But apart from that, as you know that also roots play the very important role of storage of the carbohydrate. Almost 45% of the non-structural carbohydrate which is required by the plant for further growth and development, 45% of the carbohydrate is stored in the root cells. So that's why we should have also considered in order to have the very good rhizosphere or the root environment is very important for managing the carbohydrate synthesis, storage and effective utilization. Then third plant factor is the shoot maturity. So shoot maturity also we know that it plays a very significant role. So generally say that for flowering to take place, we should have at least 8 to 9 months of the mature shoots in the different variety about the different age group. But this is exceptional. Is there in some time we can see that's called the cauliflower, where without any leaf can also we can have the flowering and fruit set. Also, we can also see the flowering on the 1.5 months old shoots. So these are some of the deviations are observed. We cannot generalize that this is only the physiological maturity should be there for the any shoot. Then one more important plant factor which play very crucial role, and that the research which was conducted that has provided the very sound fruiting and platform for the recent work, that is a hormonal balance which was studied in the regular bearing varieties and alternate bearing variety. So level of the different plant hormones before flower bud differentiation, if you see this Dasheri and Alfonso and Neelam, which is a regular bearing variety. So if we see as among the 5 hormones, you know that the auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, ethylene inhibitors, these are the 5 major classes of the hormones are there. So if you say that it is alternate bearing variety like Dasheri or the Alfonso and Neelam, if you compare, so as far as the auxin is there, no much difference will be observed. No difference for cytokinin, ethylene, but inhibitors. But most highly significant differences was observed for the content of the gibberellins, and it was observed that in many reports are there that gibberellin synthesis is almost 2 to 3 times more in the Dasheri and Alfonso type irregular bearing varieties than the regular bearing type of the Neelam. So this work just to confirm, so it proved that the gibberellin among the 5 hormones, gibberellin synthesis or its level before the flowering is one of the major flowering inhibitor in the mango was established, and this fact was again confirmed by foliar application or exogenous application of the GA on the tree which is ready for the flowering. So before the flowering or expected flowering in the on year, when this GA found that it is a GA concentration, as more the concentration, the flowering was more inhibited, and the less the concentration, some of the workers they tried and this sprayed on the on year expected flowering tree, they sprayed half of the canopy with the GA application and they left out the half portion. So they observed that this wherever they have exogenously applied the GA3, the flowering was inhibited. So it proved or established that GA is a major culprit as far as the hormone is concerned in inhibiting the flowering. So this, and then third was the environmental factor. We know that the temperature that we call it the most of the time the farmers or the generally when we discuss the flowering mango, we observe that generally that flowering takes place after the when the winter starts setting or the night temperatures come below the 15 degrees centigrade. But this level of the 15 degrees centigrade is not, you cannot generalize again here. So many studies these have been conducted in the control condition under the different temperature regime, may 30, 25, 25, 20, 20 to 15 and 15, 20. So all the varieties, they have a different response. But one thing clear that if our night temperature is about 25 degrees centigrade or 30, the flowering is generally inhibited, and when temperature comes around 15 degrees centigrade, the flower, it helps in the flowering. But as I said again, that temperature is not the lone factor which determines the flowering. So, but this, of course, it plays the significant role in the flowering of the plant. So, but there are some regions in our country where, for example, the south part or the Kanyakumari, there no winter. So there, the other factors, they play the significant role. So as and when those factors are fulfilled, the trees goes toward the flowering. So then varietal responses, then location specific and the proximity to sea. Many times the sea trees which are in the proximity to sea, they are exposed to the salty breeze, and so that the off-season flowering or the early flowering is favorable under this proximity to the sea. Then now we'll come to the management of the alternate bearing. How we can manage, that is a message for the farmers or the extension, how we can manage, what should be our managing strategies. So if you have to devise the managing strategies, again we have to revisit our main first slide, that where I show that this flowering is not it is a very complex phenomena or multiple, and it is not governed by the single factor. So we have to see how we can best manage this different soil, plant and environment factor. May not be all, but at least some of the major crucial factors we have to manage. And among these things, we can say that first is the management of alternate bearing of other. So there's a soil factor. So as far as the soil factor is concerned, we can say that if you want to have those, we have to see that after monsoon or rainy season under the coastal ecosystem, or just 1.5 months before the expected flowering time, we should see that the tree root system should expose to the mild water stress. And for that purpose, when we select the site, so site should not be waterlogged situation. It should be the slightly well drained soil, slopy lands should be there, and if the rocky area is there, because they helps in the early depletion of the moisture which was retained during the monsoon season. So this helps in the early depletion of moisture and early induction of the flowering. Then we should avoid the waterlogged sites for the mango cultivation as far as possible, or if you want, then we have to go for some specific modification in this thing. And then recently we are having one ICR funded project under the niche area. We are trying to have some of the effect of the soil management, and in that for 3 years we are observing that that is the basin exposure of the tree. If we twice in the last week of the September and last week of the October reduce the leaf and soil water content to the tune of the 50%, which results in the early flowering. So this is also helping in early depletion of the moisture from the soil, and that helps in the early induction of the flowering. So this is one of the the management strategy as far as the soil factor is concerned. Then, as you know that, as we have discussed, how the role of photosynthesis is important in the not in the mango, any crop which is the carbohydrate assimilation, because that is a major framework is constituted of the plant. And so for that purpose, to facilitate the maximum and longer carbon assimilation photosynthesis, we should go for we should adopt the different pruning methods. So that for example, now we have got many times we have got such a trees with the full with very close canopy, and we can say that only the upper leaves, they are only exposed to the light. So but they are depriving the thousands of maybe more than 4 to 5 times more leaves they are depriving from the light penetration. So we have to adopt the different pruning strategies. I will not be going detail here because but we are, for example, there may be the center opening or the center opening or the window opening. So there are a number of training of pruning techniques are there. Adopting those, our purpose should be that we should have the sufficient vegetative growth. Then most of the leaves, all the leaves should be functional. They should be participatory and contributing in the carbon assimilation. Because otherwise the mango leaves, they are not exposed to the light. They are also the loranthus on the same tree. So this we have to go for some good pruning techniques. Then irrigation, selective irrigation, because mango doesn't need the irrigation around the year. For example, we should stop irrigating plant 1.5 months before the expected flowering time, and then after fruit setting again we have to start the irrigation, and then again we have to stop before the harvest. So these are the selective irrigation is also very important. Then as you know, I told that then we should go for most of the hybrids in the country, not in the only the KKV, even at IHR Bangalore or at Lucknow or IRA. Most of the major objective is to develop the regular bearing varieties, and so in that process many hybrids have been developed. They have inherited this characteristics of the regularity from their parent, and they are regular. So good number of hybrids we can go for the plantation of the good number of hybrids which are regular in bearing habit, and of course they have got good marketable market quality. Then management of the plant factor. So here's second base, how we can manage the plant factor. So it is as I told that among the plant factor, the hormonal balance is the most important plant factor, and where we found that, and it is established that gibberellin is a flowering inhibitor in as far as mango is concerned. So the number of workers, they started searching for anti-gibberellin compound or the growth retardant. So this is in this thing for use of the anti-gibberellin compound or the growth retardant like the CCC, chlorocoid chloride, chloroquine chloride, then maleic hydrazide. So number of growth retardants were evaluated in mango. Then of course in 1985 onward, this evaluation of the paclobutrazole, what is now, we are not talking about that technology. So this evaluation of paclobutrazole, this work on this paclobutrazole, which is a growth retardant which is almost 1,000 times potent than any other growth retardant. So this was started, of course, its use was reported in many temperate fruit crops in the worldwide, but mango was limited. Then many workers in Australia, Brazil, Japan, Mexico, Africa, and Thailand, they started work on this thing. And then in our country, India, this at Vengurla, we started work. Then IHR Bangalore people, this Korean group, and then Santram at Dr. Santram ji at Pantnagar. So they started working on this aspect of using the penguin. But of course, as far as the Alfonso variety is concerned, as this is this is our prime variety in the Konkan, so we started work on this. We started on this work, and then when we evaluated this during 1987 to 1980, almost for 10 years, we work on this technology, and finally we came up with the one first recommendation, that is a soil application of PBZ at the rate of 20 ml per bearing tree once in a year during July, August, recommended for 3 to 4 weeks early bearing, early flowering, regular flowering, and for profuse or 2 to 5 times more yield. So to achieve the three benefits, 3 to 4 weeks early flowering, then regular flowering, and 2 to 2 times more yield, this recommendation was given at national level. And now, as you know, that this is antigible compound, which is antigible action, and number of that is called as other compounds like enoconazole, tripentanol, and number of other compounds, analogous compounds are available. And as far as the trade name, of course, it is available in different trade name: Kaltar, Coltar, Clipper, Bonsai, Magic. Then it is then if you see this mode of action, when it is generally, it is absorbed through the root system. When it is applied in the root zone, it moves in a acropetal movement, and then it reaches to the when subapical meristematic zone. When it reaches here, it blocks in the final stage kauran to coronic acid. That final stage is that enzyme responsible for that conversion is blocked by this compound. So that is whatever it retards the excessive gibberellin synthesis, and that's why the hormonal balance is achieved, and that regulates the balance between the vegetative growth and the reproductive growth. So as far as the dose of the tree is concerned, so we have recommended that just we have to go for the canopy diameter, and then per canopy diameter, that is a 3 ml per meter of canopy diameter dose. And then if in a subsequent year we can reduce the dose to the 50 years. Then method of application is there. So it is a soil drenching. We have not recommended the foliar application, because foliar application is because of the moment is not a precipitable moment, and then again it is a localized effect. It needs 10 times more quantity to produce soil. So this is it is a soil drenching. You have to make a small holes around the tree trunk just inside the fertilizer ring, and you have to give the recommended dose, drench the solution uniformly in this ring, and so then plug the holes with the soil. Then application time. This is very important. Time is generally we have to apply about 120 days before the expected time of the flowering. So in Konkan, we have recommended 15 July to 15 August, or you can start from 1st July to 31st August. That is a time of application, and that is 3.5 to 4 months before the expected flowering time. And we have also developed new recommendation for 2 months early fruiting in mango plantation on rocky areas by applying in the month of June. So that is a 15 May if irrigation possible, or 15 June if not, then with the onset of monsoon, to the selective trees which are having the very dark green lush vegetative flush, and not needed any more vegetative flush. In that case, such a selected tree we can go for this second recommendation. Then this is a mass effect. We had applied to the more than 750 plants uniformly in one orchard, and as you can see, this is a mass effect of the PBZ on the flowering intensity and synchronized flowering, uniform flowering in the orchard without any sign of alternate bearing habit. So this is how we can get the profuse flowering with this technology. Then this is if you go for this PBZ application on the selected trees in the 15th of May, we can advance the season by 2 months, but you cannot it is not for the entire orchard. It is only recommended for on the rocky areas where for this advance this technology is recommended. Then selection of the tree is very important. As you know that selection of the tree with a normal vigor. We don't want any tree which is a weak and sick tree should not be selected. Then as per the age of the tree, we have got the different. If it's a 10 by 10 meter or one tree per gunta, in that case we have to start at 7 to 8 years of the age. But if you have got the 5 HDP or high density planting, or then it is a 5 years. Or even if it is ultra high density, you can come to the 3 to 4 years. So depend upon the density, planting density, we can this thing. Then economical aspect, it is almost now 4,000 rupees a liter, and then we can see that 80 to 20 ml for adult tree is required. So generally nowadays it is a more than being used every year, and Konkan almost 10% area is under this technology. Now benefit assured, I say that we have got the regular flowering. Most of the almost 85 to 90% trees will be flowering. Then early flowering and yield improvement, and mainly due to the different characters, we have observed that how it is gives us this thing. Then general observation, it is a varietal response is very important. Earliness in regular bearing, though some of the varieties like Ratna or the Amrapali in Konkan, they are a regular bearing, but we can advance the season with this good response to the prune trees. Without this PBZ, to get the flowering on the prune trees, at least in 1 or 2 years after pruning, is very difficult. But if we give this, even a prune trees can respond for the flowering. And as far as the now new concept of the plantation of ultra high density and high density has come up, in that case, this is a prerequisite technology as far as flowering is. But of course, this technology needs this only PBZ, but with this should again 4 things we have given, that it should be well supported with the nutrient, pruning, then protection measures, and then quality management. So other 4 technologies are it should go as a package, not as a single technology. Then as far as the residual effect is concerned, this is being half-life is 6 months, and is a maximum permissible limit is 0.05 mg per kg, but detected it is less than 0.3 is a detected, so it is a very safe acceptable limit is been given, and number of studies have been conducted on the where the orchard which are under the for 5 years and 10 years use, their fruit samples, soil samples, and plant samples have been analyzed, and it has found that nowhere this limit has been exceeded. So still it is a safe for consumption also. Then on the basis of the total this 10 years work, we have summarized in a poster that is a takeaway message for extension worker. So but in that message also we have all the benefits, how to, we have here given what is a alternate bearing, then how to decide the dose, how to method the apply the PBZ, what is the result, and how the quality. But this again we have highlighted timely and need-based application of the recommended dose of fertilizer and manure, plant protection schedule, control of fruit drop, and post-harvest canopy management are other 4 requisites, key practices is recommended in this PBZ technology. So this is a central technology. So in this if you also first, so that we call the 5-point integrated approach we are recommending. 5 point is first is so as you know that mango phenological cycle start from the June, that is after harvest. So first is a fertilizer, recommended dose of fertilizer, then PBZ in month of July, August is the second PBZ application, then 3rd October to February blossom protection. Then we have got the 4th is a integrated management for retention of the fruits, and then finally 5th is a canopy management. So these are the 5-point technologies have been recommended for this thing. Now after I will switch over to the second physiological disorder, that is a spongy tissue. So first, biennial bearing is, it limits the yield or productivity of the orchard, and the spongy tissue is which limits the quality of the Alfonso mango. So as you know that the spongy tissue is characterized by the yellowish, this is yellowish corky white, yellowish corky patches are there with or without air pockets on one or both the sides of the stone in mesocarp of the mango fruits. So no visible symptoms are observed externally, no visible symptoms, and development sets in along with the climatic rise, and it distinguishable only during the ripening phase. Only when we cut, only ripening only it can be distinguished, or when we cut open the fruit. And this is a major threat for the domestic as well as the expansion of the export, and annually 20 to 30% losses, that is more than 1500 to 2000 million rupees are is wasted during this because of this spongy tissue. Now this is a worldwide similar, so this disorder of this spongy tissue is not only the common with the Alfonso mango, it is a worldwide reported as an internal breakdown or jelly tissue, rice tissue, etc., and reported in 23 mango producing countries. So if you see that this is in all many countries, these are the name of the countries have been given and the type of the disorder. So in some countries it's called jelly seed or internal fruit breakdown, lumpy tissues, rice tissues. Then but in India, in Alfonso we call it a spongy tissue is there. And now if you see that this work on the spongy tissue has been reviewed by the number of workers Dr. Amin from Gujarat, then Chhattar and Subramaniam's 1971. The number of workers, they have reviewed this spongy tissue work. Of course, the first report was from the Chima and Danny in 1934. That was the first report of the spongy tissue Alfonso was reported. So number of reviews are available to go into the details about this disorder. But what we observed that is, and we here at KKV Dapoli, we have research on what are the different breeding aspect, horticultural aspect, nutritional aspect, ecological aspect, biochemical aspect, physiological aspect, microbial aspect. Apart from the KK Dapoli, IHR Bangalore has also worked extensively on this disorder, and they have also come up with very good findings and the recommendations at IHR Bangalore. So as far as the varietal screening is concerned, we found that varieties which are susceptible, apart from the Alfonso, which has got the highest 10 to 60% spongy is observed, but other varieties are Dudh Peda, Goa Manko, Suvarna Rekha, and Fernandine, Ulur. These are also varieties, they are also susceptible for the spongy tissue. And some of the varieties which are genetically free, they are Pairi, Keshar, Neelam, and Ratna. So these are free. We observed these are the free from this thing. And then these are the hybrids which are developed as a spongy tissue free hybrids, mango hybrids in the recent time. Then location wise also we have observed that plain areas it has got the maximum incidence. Then age of the tree, older the tree, the incidence increase with the age of the tree. Then if you then root stock, we observed that in one of the trial where we studied the effect of the different polymer and root stock. So we observed that wherever the Villi Column was a root stock, the incidence was comparatively almost say 70% less than that was of the on grafted Alfonso grafted on the Alfonso. Then stage of the maturity, among all the factors what we have been studied so far, most clear-cut indication has come from as per this stage of the maturity at the time of harvesting. So when we say that maturity of the fruit, that is called the A stage, or that is a 75% maturity, then B stage it is 86% maturity, and D stage or tree ripe fruit. So the highest incidence was observed when the fruits were affected, when the tree ripe fruits were harvested. Then B stage, that is 86%, 87% maturity, 23%, and when it's a 75%, the incidence are 10%. So maturity at the time of the harvest is very significantly important. Then size and weight of the fruits, bigger the fruit size, more chances of getting the spongy tissue. Then role of the among the different nutrient was studied by the number of workers, and it was found that lower calcium content in the spongy tissue than healthy tissue is one of the major findings as far as the nutrient is concerned. Then role of the K was found to be very important. So when K was supplied as is a recommended dose of the NPK, if the K is supplied through MOP and SOP, so we found that in 3 years data that when is a K should not be encouraged to supply through the MOP. It is if it is a SOP. So here we are only giving the K without any chlorides. So the incidence came as low as 4.5%. So this is one of the biggest finding about. So this we can brought down the incidence below 5% with the help of the when we use the K not as a MOP but as a SOP. Then we found the biochemical and chemical changes associated with the spongy tissue in a healthy pulp. So we found that acidity remains more, then starch content remains unhydrolyzed. So that's why we say that spongy tissue is nothing but it is ripening disorder, and when generally the ripening takes place, the starch, which is almost 11%, get completely hydrolyzed into the and convert into the different sugars. So then after the normal ripening, starch is totally disappears and it get converted into the sugar. But when in spongy tissue, in some of the portion, the starch is not completely hydrolyzed. So it is a halfway ripening portion, which is where the starch is not completely hydrolyzed. That halfway conversion of the starch into the sugars is that portion we call as a spongy tissue. Okay. So then we have observed that polyphenolic inhibitor and carotenoid content, total sugar. So all they showed that significant differences in the spongy tissue and healthy is there. Then alpha amylase, among the different enzyme studies, we observed that this is a activity of the alpha amylase. Spongy tissue exhibited 16 times lesser amylase activity, which is responsible for the hydrolysis of the starch. So, and 2.5 times higher invertase activity. So this is a major biochemical changes we observed in the spongy tissue development. Then soil temperature also very important. We observed that if the fruits are having the soil temperature in barren soil, the temperature was 50 degrees centigrade, and occurrence of spongy tissue also more. And if we can minimize the soil temperature during the last 2 months of the root development, if it is a 34 degrees centigrade soil temperature, the incidence was also low. So the soil temperature, that because the soil temperature if the soil is barren, because of the overheating of the soil, the convective heat currents, they start generating in that particular location, and that also increase the air temperature and the fruit temperature, which leads to the occurrence of spongy tissue. Then we observe the sunlight exposure. So if you have managed all the factors, and if you leave the fruits unattended on the bright noon hours of the bright sunshine hour, so within 1 hour or 1 to 2 hours, is it 120 minutes, we found that 100% fruit they develop the induced spongy tissue. Okay, so the inside temperature of 49 degrees centigrade. So one should not leave the fruits unattended during the noon hours after the harvesting. So that is also a very important factor as far as the temperature is concerned. Then effect of the sudden rise in daily maximum temperature. Sometimes the harsh all of a sudden the temperature shoots by difference of 4 to 5 degrees centigrade over the normal temperature. And whenever we are observed in current years, that is in March 2016, March 2017, so even in the 2018, so there was a sudden increase in the temperature by 4 to 5 degrees centigrade. That sudden increase in temperature also leads to the formation of the sun scald or the sun scald, and that also leads to the development of the spongy tissue. So this is then a very good paper has been published from the IHR Bangalore by the Shiv Shankar and Mathi in 1998, where they establish the relations of the leaf and fruit transpiration rate to the incidence of the spongy tissue disorder in 2 mango cultures, Alfonso and Dasheri. So they observe that the fruit transpiration, Alfonso has got very meager fruit transpiration because of the very low intensity of the lenticels. So there is a low transpiration. That's why the water and other calcium supply towards the fruit is restricted, and internal temperature increases. That leads to the spongy tissue development. They proved by the very good conducting this experiment at IHR Bangalore. So fruit transpiration, fruit skin transpiration also contributes significantly in deciding the spongy tissue occurrence. Then effect of the growth regulator occurrence of spongy tissue. Here the PBZ was supplied, and we conducted this trial for 2 consecutive years, and that we observed that PBZ, or that significantly reduced the incidence at all the 3 stages of the fruit development to the greater extent. So role of the PBZ, not only PBZ is a control the alternate bearing, but also as a seed germination inhibitor, also helps in reducing the or minimizing the occurrence of spongy tissue in the Alfonso mango. Then very good classical paper came from the Ravindra and Shiv Shankarji from IHR Bangalore, and they established the significance of the in situ seed germination event. Means they observed many pre-germination event in the seed while on the tree. So when the fruit is on the tree itself, that time they observed that the tree, the Alfonso fruits, they enter into the germination mode, and many pre-germination activities like the this seeds absorb the moisture from the nearest or the nearby mesocarp tissues, the moisture, then oxygen also comes inside, calcium also comes inside. So then after so these are all activities set the seeds germination, and those things are becomes then deficient in the mesocarp, and that portion also develop the spongy tissue. So on this basis only, very good recommendation about the use of the Arka Saka Nivarak has been developed, and that has been recommended for to minimize the incidence of the spongy tissue in Alfonso mango. Then on the basis of this, all this thing, we can say that this the spongy tissue is not governed by the single factor. Again, just like alternate here, also multiple factors are deciding this. That's why we cannot have the single approach for controlling. So some of the major strategies to manage this spongy tissue could be use of the sulfate of potash rather than muriate of potash, then foliar feeding of potassium nitrate, then TCA and the folic acid, then pre-harvest dipping in Arka Saka Nivarak IHR Bangalore technology, then bagging of fruits in high density planting. Not in the world, we cannot, not possible, but in bagging of the fruits in high density planting system is possible. Then harvesting fruit at B stage of maturity, that is we have to scrupulously should not allow the fruit to get over mature on the tree. Then avoiding post-harvest exposure to the sunlight, then handling, storage, shipment and ripening of the fruit at comparatively low temperature, then transportation of the fruit during the night hours, and then avoiding the concentrated detergent solution for washing the blemished fruits during the packing. So these are some of the integrated approaches one farmer can go for to minimize the incidence of spongy tissue. Then this showed that the bagging experiment also, the bagging also helping in the reducing the spongy tissue occurrence. Now, some of the we have developed in recent year, we have developed some of the technology for minimizing the spongy tissue during the export of the Alfonso mango. For example, in Alfonso, as you know that this whenever the mango fruits are exported to the Japan, particularly the Alfonso, they are very much, they have a stringent application. Vapor heat treatment is a must. That is a prerequisite if you want to send the mango fruits to the Japan. But in this vapor heat treatment, the temperature is gradually increased from the ambient to the 52 degrees centigrade or the pulp temperature above 46.5 degrees centigrade for 20 minutes. So when fruits are exposed to the vapor heat treatment, Alfonso fruits, they develop the spongy tissue. So unknowingly the fruits were reaching to the Japan, and then the spongy tissue was observed on very high, maximum or the most that was a remarkable or that was a threatening level was observed. For that purpose, we conducted the experiment in Vengula, Dapoli, and we studied the effect of vapor heat treatment on spongy mango. Here, we after we decided what should be the safe time between the harvesting and vapor heat treatment. So we tried different interval: 18 hours interval, 20 hours interval, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and 18 hours. 18 hours of harvest. So from this, what we observed that if we expose the fruits immediately after the harvest to this vapor heat treatment, the incidence was as high as it is in control after 18 hours harvest. So this incidence was 87% in treated. Okay, and then we observed this thing and 81%. But when we observed the fruits after 3 days interval, the incidence came to the 16% only. So we should not immediately, we should give at least 3 days gap between the means after 3 days only we should expose this fruits to the vapor heat treatment to avoid this occurrence of spongy tissue. Then we studied the effect of the 1-methyl cyclopropane on ripening behavior. There also this recommendation of this use of 1 MCP as 1000 parts per billion. Also This is recommended for prolonging the ripening and shelf life period of Alfonso mango for sea export to the Europe with the minimum incidence of spongy tissue. So this was one of the technology. And then just to develop the what is called as a non-destructive method to detect the spongy tissue, we had one collaborative project with the Siri Chennai, and there also we found that if we develop this X-ray machine with the help of the Chiri Chennai, and this machine can detect the fruits to the 90% accuracy. But of course, this is not a portable machine. That is one of the major limitation. But this X-ray machine can detect the fruits and can also segregate or separate it out automatically by throwing the fruits out of belt. So detection and sorting is possible with more than 90% accuracy with this machine what we have developed. So this is about this thing. So what we can say that this mango is a prone for as a so from this what I say that if I have to conclude the my talk, mango is prone for as has 8 physiological disorders, affects all major phenophages, leading to the substantial yield losses and quality deterioration. Then alternate bearing is one of the major physiological disorder found in majority of the commercial mango varieties across the country, and Alfonso, Dasheri are distinctly alternate bearing varieties which needs immediate attention as they are very distinctly alternate bearing. Then mango flower factors we should not discuss on the single factor. This is a complex phenomena and governed by the several factors, and when the coordination among the different factors takes place, that situation leads to the induction of the flowering. Then soil, among the soil factor, pre-flowering water stress, plant factor, hormonal balance, that is GO level, managing the GO levels, and high carbohydrate, maintaining high carbohydrate reserve. And then among the environment factors, low temperature, these are the most crucial factor in deciding the flowering. Then use of paclobutrazol is one of the potent tool currently available. However, integrated approach is must. Then spongy tissue is a ripening disorder largely confined to the culture of Alfonso, resulted due to the natural course of the ripening in certain areas. That is a halfway conversion of the starch into the sugar. Then technologies developed and recommended by the DBSKK Dapoli and IHR Bangalore have potential to bring down this spongy tissue incidence below 5 to 8% as against average incidence of 20 to 25 to 30% of this thing. So thank you very much for patience listening, and thank you.
Sir, kindly stop sharing the slides, sir. Thank you very much, sir. That was one of the most wonderful lectures of this entire webinar in the past 2 days. I think the session now is open for a couple of questions from the participants.
Can you explain about the stem borer? Stem borer is the main problem for Alfonso mangoes. Would you be able to give us some explanation, please, to avoid stem borers?
Stem borer is an entomological problem that bores the stem. I think you mean this fruit borer, that is a weevil. That is a fruit weevil.
Not fruit borer, not fruit borer, it is stem borer.
That doesn't, sorry sir, I am not it's entomologist can, I think in the next lecture you have got some good lectures there, you can ask the question to the stem borer.
Sir, next session is on management only. You can raise your question.
Yes,
in that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for disturbing.
No, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, Naveen Kumar.
Yes, sir. Actually, we have around 10 acre of Alfonso orchard in our area, like in Shimoga. But what I'm hesitate to use paclobutrazol is the experienced farmers and some are telling that paclobutrazol has a very bad negative impact on the overall general health of the tree, and the tree productivity will be greatly reduced. So what is your views about that?
Yes, now friend, we have some farmers, more than 200 farmers, they are using this technology for last 20 years. As I said that this PBZ is not the only factor, because sometimes, you know, the farmers, they over concentrate only on the PBZ inputs, and they don't pay the required attention to the other inputs. As I said, that this PBZ should go with all this as a package, and wherever this package has scrupulously followed without any problem for numbers of years, but provided that all the factors should be managed perfectly. If you want any more clarification, you can have my contact number and I can help you how to describe the very precise schedule.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your mobile number, please?
94 9423 296 299. 9423 296 299.
Yes. The phone number will be also placed in the chat box for the benefit of the participants.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Very good morning, sir. Very good.
Sir, I am Dr. Satodia from Anand Agriculture University, Anand, Gujarat.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
So we have a big problem of mango malformation, vegetative as well as the floral in all the varieties. So is there any remedy or the solution for this?
Sir, again, this malformation is a very complex disorder. As most of the disorders, they are not governed by the single factor. All the role of the mites, role of the fungus, role of the hormones, all these things have, whatever the literature is showing, that is that malforming, that is that substance which is synthesized. Yes. So we have to, what we said, that is recommended, that we have to go for the spraying of the auxin, which is an anti-malforming compound, that is at the rate of 200 ppm. That we may also be knowing, that is a very recommended. And then that is managing that fungus and also this mites. So there's a role is also highlighted in the malformation. And one more thing, that this is related with the local climatic factor. Same varieties, when they are grown along the coastal areas. So in coastal areas where the warm and humid climate is there, generally it doesn't appear. But where there is a cold is severe, so temperature forms plays very significant role, and of course the variety. And moreover, whatever the integrated approaches suggested, that whatever the portion that you just destroy it, and then when we bring the plants from the nursery, it should be preferably from the area where this is not reported, so that you will not be bringing the any inoculum, because sometimes the grafts, you can also bring the grafts with that inoculum of the malformation.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Boronkar, this is Dean Ravindra Mulge from College of Horticulture, Bidar.
Namaskar, sir.
So I really congratulate you being an associate dean and having so much interest in your field, being a physiologist. Really have done a justice to this very complex topic on mango, because physiological disorders, whatever it is there, it is discussed so long, and a lot of work also has been done, but still because of many factors we are not able to say one particular point. That means it's a very complex. So you really thrown a light on that, and I think people, even some farmers also, they can follow those your recommendations, and that can help for this particular complex situation. Because Alfonso, we wanted to grow it, be there, but we are facing more problem on that. Dr. Praveen can note down, and at least a few issues of that can be applied and try to solve that. Really great presentation, Dr. Thank you very much for accepting our call and presenting this wonderful topic of very useful to all farming community, mango growers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello,
Thank you,
good morning, sir.
Thank you all.
Hello,
Mr. Bhavkumar.
Hello.
hello,
Yes, Mr. Sinha.
hello. Good morning, sir. Sir,
Good morning. Good morning.
sir, very nice lecture, sir. I want to know that is the reason for vegetative malformation and reproductive malformation is same or different?
it is a, see the
Because
causal
there
factors
is
are
a
same,
two
but
type
it is
of
manifested.
malformation occur in North India, sir.
The vector may be the different, but the moreover what the literature says that the internal secretion of the malformin and other things are the same, but only their manifestation is a different, and the carrying factors or the role of the mites or the role of the fungus, it changes from the vegetative and reproductive malformation.
Well, sir, that was really a wonderful
Psychological-
talk, as our Dean expressed. It was great to listen to you. Sir, for your information, we have participants across the country from north, south, east, and west. They are really enriched by your very encouraging and very beautiful lecture on the complex issue of physiological disorders in case of mango. We look forward for your future interactions in this way. On behalf of College of Horticulture, Bidar, and University of Horticulture Sciences, Bagalkot, we wholeheartedly thank you for your